Psychology offers us something vital: understanding ourselves. The greatest challenge we face often comes from within our own minds. Consider this question: are you truly the person you believe yourself to be? What if your thoughts, choices, and motivations stem from forces you're completely unaware of? There exists within each person a hidden dimension that operates silently, shaping behavior from behind the scenes. This isn't conspiracy. It's established psychological science. Carl Jung dedicated his life to mapping this internal landscape, and his discoveries remain profoundly relevant. Do you find yourself making the same mistakes repeatedly, undermining your own relationships, feeling blocked even when circumstances seem favorable? These patterns might stem from unconscious forces Jung identified: the shadow self, archetypal patterns, and the collective unconscious. Understanding these concepts isn't optional if you want genuine self-awareness. Ignoring them means stumbling through life without understanding why you keep encountering the same obstacles. Jung went beyond surface-level psychology. He explored the deepest structures of human consciousness, charting territory others avoided. His work provides a mirror for honest self-examination. But be warned, once you grasp these ideas, you cannot unsee them. You'll recognize patterns you've missed for years and understand that your greatest obstacles are internal, not external. The encouraging news: these inner challenges can become your greatest strengths once you face them directly. Born in 1875 in Switzerland, Jung grew up immersed in religious symbolism and philosophical questions. From childhood, he sensed dimensions to human experience that couldn't be captured through logic alone. He initially studied under Freud and became his most promising student, but their relationship couldn't last. Freud attributed most psychological issues to repressed sexuality. Jung saw something broader: archetypal forces, mythological patterns, and connections stretching back through human history. Where Freud examined recent personal history, Jung looked toward ancient collective roots. This fundamental disagreement made their split inevitable. Jung sought more than symptom treatment. He wanted to restore people's connection with their deeper selves. He viewed the psyche as dynamic and filled with opposing tensions: conscious and unconscious, reason and emotion, masculine and feminine energies. He didn't see psychological suffering as error, but as invitation toward growth and integration. His approach, analytical psychology, focuses on understanding and integrating rejected aspects of yourself rather than simply eliminating symptoms. For Jung, unconsciousness posed the real danger, not suffering itself. Why does this matter now? Modern society continues struggling with destructive patterns. We suppress emotions, numb ourselves, and avoid pain. Jung predicted this and offered a roadmap, a path toward self-understanding, revealing why we feel so disconnected and what reconnection requires. He doesn't provide easy solutions or empty promises. Instead, he offers something more valuable: genuine truth about your inner world. One of Jung's most striking discoveries was the collective unconscious, a layer of mind shared across all humanity. This deep realm of symbols, images, and forces shapes our lives, whether we recognize it or not. Most people assume their thoughts, emotions, and fears are entirely personal, products of individual experience, upbringing, and specific memories. Jung challenged this assumption fundamentally. He revealed a deeper, older, more powerful layer of psyche that doesn't belong to you individually, yet still governs your behavior. Think of your conscious mind as a small island. Your personal experiences, memories, and traumas exist there on the surface. But beneath lies an invisible ocean shared by all humans, filled with symbols, images, and patterns formed over millennia, ancient mythological themes, primordial patterns, and forces that existed before your birth still live within you, influencing how you think, love, and suffer. The collective unconscious isn't mere metaphor. It's psychological reality, manifesting in dreams, fantasies, religious experiences, compelling films, and timeless stories. This explains why vastly different civilizations across different eras created similar myths featuring heroes, wise figures, monsters, journeys, and redemption. These narratives aren't just cultural inventions, they reflect the fundamental architecture of human consciousness. Jung believed archetypal patterns underlie all human behavior. When you fear abandonment, you're touching an ancestral pattern. When you need belonging, meaning, or self-transcendence, you're being guided by forces present since humanity's dawn. Ignoring the collective unconscious is like ignoring gravity. You can pretend it doesn't exist, but it still affects you. It manifests in your relationships, choices, and repetitive patterns until you recognize you're grappling not just with personal issues, but with universal human struggles. What exactly inhabits this collective unconscious? Jung called them archetypes, universal forms present in everyone, functioning as patterns of behavior, emotion, and thought. Among all archetypes, one stands out as most ignored, most feared, most dangerous. It exists within you, and until you acknowledge it, it controls your life from the shadows. Have you ever acted in ways you later deeply regretted without understanding why? Exploded in anger and thought afterward, "That wasn't like me?" Felt envy, jealousy, anger, or pride, but chose to ignore or rationalize these feelings rather than confronting them? Then you've encountered your shadow. You simply haven't looked at it directly. Jung believed everyone carries a dark side, a rejected, repressed, denied aspect comprising everything you refuse to admit exists within you. Your shameful impulses, unacceptable desires, weaknesses, arrogance, cruelty, neediness, vanity, rage, all reside inside you. The more you repress this material, the stronger it becomes. The shadow contains everything you've hidden to gain acceptance, what you suppressed to fit in, the spontaneous child you pruned away, the teenager forced into silence, the adult who learned to smile while crumbling internally. Here's the difficult truth. Whatever you don't face in your shadow begins controlling your life beneath conscious awareness. The shadow doesn't vanish, it disguises itself. It emerges in your harsh judgments of others, in unexplained anger, in paralyzing shame, in the inner voice insisting you're inadequate, in self-sabotage that derails you at crucial moments. The more convinced you are of being a good person, the more dangerous your shadow becomes. When you don't recognize anger, selfishness, or envy as parts of yourself, you project them outward. You see evil in others, but never in yourself. Jung stated that the unconscious directs your life until you make it conscious, and you call this fate. Put differently, while you pretend the shadow doesn't exist, it dominates you. You repeat the same patterns, choose people who hurt you, sabotage opportunities, flee from love, success, and freedom, because deep down you feel undeserving. But there's a path forward. You can confront this darkness, not to destroy it, but to integrate it. The shadow isn't purely destructive. It also contains raw power that, when properly channeled, can completely transform you. This requires willingness to enter dangerous territory, facing aspects of yourself that have been banished, forgotten, and suffocated. This confrontation begins the genuine process of self-knowledge. Jung named this process individuation, a difficult, lengthy journey, but absolutely necessary for those seeking true freedom. Living in fragments means living in conflict. Most people spend entire lives trying to fit in, pleasing parents, meeting social expectations, conforming to cultural standards. They mold themselves, distort themselves, numb themselves, all to avoid confronting who they truly are. Yet deep within persists an emptiness, a discomfort, a sense that something essential is missing. Jung understood this precisely. He called it absence of individuation. Individuation isn't superficial self-improvement or manifestation techniques. It's the brutal, intense, profound process of becoming a whole person. It involves confronting your shadow, integrating internal opposites, reconnecting with your soul. It means ceasing to be merely a mask, what Jung termed the persona, and discovering the true self behind it. Individuating means dying to who you thought you were to be reborn as something more authentic. It's ego collapse, illusion breaking. It's facing aspects you've denied for decades. It's discovering you're neither as virtuous as you'd like, nor as flawed as you fear. It's accepting that you contain light and darkness, strength and fragility, courage and cowardice simultaneously. Here's what nobody mentions. This process hurts intensely because it requires releasing the lies you built to survive. It demands you stop blaming others and take responsibility for your life. It requires abandoning the need for acceptance and pursuing wholeness instead. Individuation doesn't occur suddenly. It reveals itself through crises, losses, ruptures. Each time something within you dies, a belief, a relationship, an identity, something new emerges in its place. But this only happens when you're willing to face discomfort, doubt, and chaos. Jung noted that encountering the self necessarily defeats the ego. Most people avoid this path, preferring comfortable ignorance. But those with courage to face darkness discover something invaluable: freedom. By integrating rejected parts, confronting your shadow, and listening to your soul, you become what you've always been but never dared to be. The soul communicates constantly, though not through words. It uses symbols, images, and stories. It speaks through dreams. Learning to listen can reveal secrets reason cannot access. While the modern world dismisses dreams as nonsense or mental static, Jung took the opposite view. For him, dreams are the psyche's voice. Not noise, but messages. Encoded, mysterious, symbolic, yet never meaningless. Every night during sleep, something within you awakens and begins speaking. The problem is we haven't learned to listen. Jung saw dreams as the unconscious attempting to restore psychological balance. When consciousness strays too far from essence, the unconscious sends images, scenes, archetypes, and symbols, everything needed to pull you back toward center. Dreams aren't merely recordings of daily experiences. They're guidance, directions, invitations, warnings, sometimes even alerts. Consider why you dream of falling when losing control in waking life. Why teeth falling out appears when you feel weakened. Why the same symbol repeats across different dreams. This isn't coincidence. It's your soul attempting communication. But the soul doesn't speak rationally. It speaks symbolically. This brings us to one of Jung's greatest contributions: archetypal symbolism. Lions, snakes, houses, forests, mirrors, doors, tunnels, maternal figures, shadows. These elements don't appear randomly in dreams. They represent aspects of your psyche, pieces of your soul attempting to emerge. Each symbol carries energy and function. A house might represent your inner self. A snake might indicate transformation. A ladder might point toward spiritual ascent or unconscious descent, depending on direction. A mirror might reflect the shadow you refuse to see. Understanding this language resembles learning an ancient tongue, the language of your soul. Jung believed that ignoring dream symbols increases our distance from ourselves. When we stray from the soul's center, we become lost, entering crisis, experiencing anxiety, depression, disorientation. We lose direction because we've lost connection with our internal compass. Dreams are that compass. Ignoring them means covering your eyes while walking through a maze. Want to understand who you truly are? Why you attract certain patterns? Why you feel stuck? Why you carry particular fears? Examine your dreams. Record them. Reflect on them. Face your symbols. They contain answers your conscious mind cannot formulate. But dreams aren't the only symbolic communicators. A much deeper, older, more influential force also manifests through symbols, archetypes, invisible characters living within you, the true directors of your life's theater. Have you caught yourself acting strangely, as if you weren't yourself? Felt like you're repeating patterns whose origins remain unknown? Always attracted to the same type of person, the same type of pain, the same type of story? Jung knew exactly why this happens. Within you live invisible forces, genuine psychological characters that don't just influence decisions, they stage your entire life. These forces are archetypes. Archetypes are universal psychic structures. They're not learned ideas. They're ancestral patterns you were born with, as ancient as humanity itself, residing in the collective unconscious. They're like internal templates, shaping your behaviors, emotions, and personal narratives. The most unsettling aspect, you can spend your entire life guided by an archetype without ever realizing it. Jung identified several key archetypes. The hero represents the force seeking to overcome challenges and achieve something significant. The wise one seeks knowledge, truth, and discernment. The shadow represents everything repressed and denied. The anima and animus represent feminine energy in men and masculine energy in women, energies requiring integration for wholeness. These archetypes aren't abstract concepts. They possess energy. When an archetype dominates the psyche, it possesses you literally. It seizes control of your consciousness and drives your life without permission. That's why you sometimes act unlike yourself. Why certain relationships pull you into dynamics that seem scripted. You're living under an activated archetype's command. People who save everyone around them while destroying themselves internally are often dominated by the hero archetype. Those seeking constant approval and fearing rejection may be trapped in the wounded child archetype. Someone perpetually drawn to chaos and destruction probably lives under the unintegrated shadow's dominance. Here's the crucial point. These archetypes aren't enemies. When unconscious, they enslave you. When recognized and integrated, they empower you. They're keys, portals. When you begin recognizing who's speaking inside you, you start controlling your own narrative. But this requires consciousness. You must learn identifying these internal voices, these symbolic patterns, these mythical forces hiding in your relationships, reactions, and desires. Only then do you stop being a character and become your own story's author. Jung's ideas become especially urgent today. We're bombarded by stimuli, distractions, and pressures pulling us away from our essence. We live in a world pushing us outward, completely disconnecting us from what exists within. The consequence: emptiness, meaning collapse, spiritual crisis masked as stress, depression, and anxiety. We inhabit the information age, yet have never been more disoriented. We access everything constantly, yet wander lost, fragmented, exhausted. Modernity promised freedom, but delivered anxiety. It promised connection, but drowned us in empty comparisons. Amidst this constant noise, a silenced question screams inside millions: who am I really? This is precisely where Jung's work becomes most relevant and necessary. Jung didn't offer ready-made formulas. He didn't sell happiness in pills or promise success through positive thinking. What he offered was something infinitely more powerful, a path back to the soul, a route of reintegration with everything forgotten, suffocated, and distorted by a society obsessed with productivity, appearance, and performance. He foresaw identity collapse. He understood how modern people would be consumed by the persona, the social mask worn for acceptance, admiration, and advancement. He knew that ignoring the shadow enslaves us to forces we pretend not to possess, that rejecting dreams cuts the bridge to the unconscious, that dismissing symbols and archetypes loses us the map of our own being. Jung wrote about this decades ago, Yet today it reads like a description of current reality. People feeling empty despite achievements, relationships increasingly superficial, fragile, disposable. Existential crises among young people, explosions of anxiety, depression, and disorders that medicine attempts containing but doesn't understand. The modern world sold us the illusion that we can live only on the surface. But the soul refuses being ignored indefinitely. When it screams, it doesn't ask for validation. It asks for meaning, depth, integration. Jung wasn't a therapist for peaceful times. He was a guide for times of collapse, times like now. Because when everything external loses meaning, status, success, control, turning inward becomes necessary. This internal dive frightens us because inside you'll find not only light, but monsters, traumas, masks, painful truths. Yet you'll also discover something no one else can give you, your true self. You won't heal your life with ready-made phrases or shortcuts. But if you have courage to face yourself, strip away illusions, and dive into this process Jung called inner transformation, then yes, hope exists. What does this mean practically? How do you start this journey back to yourself? How do you move from theory to real transformation? You've spent your whole life trying to fit in, protect yourself, and belong. You pretended strength while shattered inside. You smiled while everything within screamed for help. Somewhere along the way, you forgot who you were, your essence, your mystery, your creative chaos, your soul. But now something within you is awakening. It's no coincidence you're reading this. Jung believed nothing happens by chance. Even seemingly accidental encounters are manifestations of the unconscious attempting to show you something. Perhaps this has been exactly that, a call. A call to stop running. A call to stop lying to yourself. A call to abandon the surface and dive deep into your psyche's depths. What Jung teaches isn't easy to hear because it requires courage, pain, and responsibility. But it's also liberating because the moment you understand you're not broken, just unconscious, you gain power. The power to transform, integrate, and heal. You don't need to understand everything immediately. You don't need to decipher all your dreams or identify all your archetypes. But you need to take the first step, the step of honesty, the step of saying enough. Enough living on autopilot. Enough denying your pain. Enough being imprisoned by a superficial version of yourself. From now on, everything changes because now you know. And what has been seen cannot become invisible again. The journey inward doesn't end here. When the soul awakens, it wants more. You're just at the beginning of what could be the greatest transformation of your life.